I thought I knew what rock bottom felt like. I was wrong. It was a Tuesday afternoon when I sat across from the bank representative, my hands shaking so hard I could barely hold the pen. $67,000. That's what it cost to save my parents' lives, Dad's emergency triple bypass surgery and Mom's stage 3 cancer treatment that insurance refused to cover because of some bureaucratic loophole I still didn't understand. The loan officer had looked at me with those pitying eyes, the kind that said you're making a mistake, but what choice did I have? They were my parents. The people who raised me, fed me, taught me to ride a bike. You don't let your parents die because of money. You just don't. So I signed everything. My savings account, empty. My emergency fund, gone. My small apartment that I'd worked 3 jobs to afford, now remortgaged. The number 67,000 burned itself into my brain like a brand, a weight I'd carry for the next 15 years of monthly payments. But they lived. That's what mattered. Dad came home from the hospital with new arteries and a fresh lease on life. Mom's scans came back clear after 6 brutal rounds of chemotherapy. I sat with her through every single session, holding the bucket when she got sick, rubbing her back when the pain medication made her dizzy, sleeping in that horrible vinyl hospital chair that left permanent marks on my spine. My brother, Ethan? He sent a fruit basket. Once. He lived 4 hours away in his perfect suburban house with his perfect wife and their 2 perfect kids. He had a good job, better than mine, something in corporate finance that I never fully understood but knew paid well. When I called him, desperate, begging for help with the medical bills, he'd sighed like I was asking him to donate a kidney. Maya, I've got college funds to think about, he'd said, his voice distant and distracted. The kids' future, you know. Mom and Dad wouldn't want us to sacrifice the grandkids' education. Sacrifice. As if his kids going to state school instead of private university was equivalent to financial ruin. I'll figure it out, I'd told him, my voice hollow. And I did. I figured it out by destroying my own future. For 6 months after they recovered, I barely slept. I worked my regular job as a medical transcriptionist during the day, then picked up night shifts at a 24-hour diner, then did freelance editing work until 3 in the morning. My body ran on coffee and spite, my eyes perpetually burning with exhaustion. But I visited them every Sunday. Mom and Dad's house, the same yellow 2-story where I grew up, where the kitchen still smelled like Mom's famous pot roast and Dad's study was cluttered with his collection of old National Geographic magazines. They seemed happy. Healthy. Grateful, I thought. I thought wrong. It was a Sunday in October, leaves turning burnt orange outside the dining room windows, when my world collapsed for the second time in a year. I'd brought groceries. I always brought groceries because their fixed income didn't stretch far, and was unpacking them in the kitchen when I heard Ethan's voice in the living room. He'd actually shown up. First time in 4 months. Hey, stranger, I called out, trying to keep my voice light despite the resentment that had been building in my chest like sediment. He barely glanced at me. Maya. Dad was sitting in his recliner, the blue one with the torn armrest that Mom kept threatening to replace. Mom was on the couch, looking stronger than she had in months, her hair growing back in soft silver tufts. We need to have a family meeting, Dad announced, and something in his tone made my stomach drop. I set down the bag of apples I was holding. What's going on? Ethan sat down on the couch next to Mom, and I noticed how they'd arranged themselves, them on one side, me standing alone in the doorway. Your mother and I have been doing some estate planning, Dad began, his voice taking on that formal quality he used when he wanted to sound authoritative. Now that we've had these health scares, we need to make sure everything's in order. My heart started pounding. Okay. We've updated our will, Mom said softly, not meeting my eyes. We wanted to tell you both at the same time. I moved into the room, sitting in the chair across from them, that horrible anticipation building in my throat. Dad cleared his throat. We've decided to leave everything to Ethan. The words hit me like a physical blow. I actually felt my body rock backward. What? The house, the savings, Dad's pension remainder, All of it goes to Ethan, Mom explained, her voice quiet but steady. We think it's the right decision. I couldn't breathe. The room tilted sideways, furniture sliding in my peripheral vision. I don't understand, I whispered. I just paid $67,000 for your medical bills. I'm still paying them. I'll be paying them for the next 15 years. Dad's face hardened. And we appreciate that, Maya. We do. But Ethan has a family to support. 2 children who need stability. You're single, no kids, no major responsibilities. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. Those 3 words echoed in my skull like a death knell. I mortgaged my apartment, I said, my voice shaking. I emptied my entire savings. I work 3 jobs. I haven't slept more than 4 hours a night in 6 months. That was your choice, Ethan said, and his tone was so casual, so dismissive, that I wanted to scream. Nobody forced you to do that. I stared at him, this man who shared my DNA but felt like a complete stranger. You sent a fruit basket. He shrugged. I helped in the way I could. A fruit basket, I repeated, my voice rising. A $40 fruit basket while I destroyed my financial future. Don't be dramatic, Mom said, and there it was, that word that had haunted me my entire childhood. Dramatic. Emotional. Too sensitive. Ethan has been more responsible with his money, Dad continued. He's built a stable life. He deserves to inherit the family assets. Deserves. I looked at my brother, sitting there in his expensive jacket, his designer watch catching the light, his face utterly impassive. When did you decide this? I asked. Mom and Dad exchanged a glance. About 2 months ago, Dad said. 2 months. They decided this 2 months ago while I was still making payments, still working myself into the ground, still showing up every Sunday with groceries I couldn't afford. So let me get this straight, I said slowly, standing up because sitting made me feel like I was being buried alive. I paid for your lives. Literally. I saved you. And your response is to give everything to the son who sent a fruit basket? It's not about keeping score, Mom said. Then what is it about? My voice cracked. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're rewarding the child who did nothing and punishing the one who gave up everything. We're not punishing you, Dad said firmly. We're being practical. Ethan needs it more. He makes 3 times my salary. He has children to educate. And I have a loan that's going to follow me until I'm 50 years old. The room went silent. Ethan was looking at his phone. My parents sat there, united in their decision, unmovable as mountains. Something inside me broke then. Not shattered, shattering is dramatic, loud. This was quiet, a hairline fracture spreading through the foundation of who I thought I was. I need to go, I whispered. Maya, don't leave angry, Mom called as I grabbed my purse. But I was already walking out, past the kitchen where I'd left their groceries on the counter, past the photos on the wall showing the 4 of us from happier times, past any illusion that my sacrifice had meant anything to them at all. I sat in my car in their driveway for 20 minutes, shaking, unable to turn the key in the ignition. My phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. I stared at those words until they blurred. Then I drove home to my small, mortgaged apartment and cried until I couldn't breathe. The next 3 weeks were a fog. I went through the motions, work, eat, sleep, repeat, but I felt like a ghost haunting my own life. I stopped answering my parents' calls. I stopped visiting on Sundays. I couldn't bear to sit in that living room, to pretend everything was normal while they'd essentially erased my sacrifice from the family narrative. My phone buzzed constantly. Dad, you're being childish. Mom, we love you both equally, you know that. Ethan, you're making Mom stressed, and she just recovered from cancer. That last one almost broke me. As if I was the villain in this story. I was sitting at the diner during my night shift, refilling salt shakers at 2 a.m., when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Is this Maya Castellano? A woman's voice, professional and careful. Yes. This is Patricia Hendricks. I'm an attorney. I'm calling about your mother's estate. My heart stopped. Did something happen? No, the woman said quickly. She's fine. But she came to see me 3 weeks ago. She wanted to update some legal documents. I'm calling because there's been a situation. I set down the salt shaker, my hand trembling. What kind of situation? I'd prefer to discuss this in person. Can you come to my office tomorrow? Say, 2 p.m.? I should have said no. I should have hung up and walked away from all of it. But curiosity is a cruel thing. I'll be there, I said. The lawyer's office was in a modest building downtown, the kind with faded carpet and fluorescent lights that hummed too loudly. Patricia Hendricks was a woman in her 60s with kind eyes and sensible shoes. She gestured for me to sit. Your mother came to see me on October 15th, she began, pulling out a file. She wanted to create a new will. October 15th. That was 2 days after the family meeting. 2 days after they'd announced Ethan was getting everything. She was very specific about her wishes, Patricia continued. She told me about the medical bills you paid. About your sacrifice. She was emotional. Said she couldn't sleep. My throat tightened. What did she do? Patricia slid a document across the desk. She created a second will. One that supersedes the joint will she and your father had made. In this will, everything she personally owns, her half of the house, her personal savings account, the small piece of land her mother left her in Montana, it all goes to you. I stared at the paper, the words swimming in front of my eyes. She made me promise not to tell anyone, Patricia said gently. Not your father, not your brother. She said if she died, you'd need to know that she saw what you did. That it mattered. Why didn't she just tell me? I whispered. Patricia's expression softened with something like pity. Sometimes people find it easier to correct things in death than in life. I think she was afraid. Of your father's reaction. Of splitting the family. I looked up at her. Is this legal? Can she do this without Dad knowing? Absolutely. Spouses can maintain separate wills. What she owned individually, she can bequeath to anyone she chooses. I sat there, holding this document, this proof that somewhere beneath all the dysfunction, my mother had seen me. Why are you telling me this now? I asked. She's not. She's fine, Patricia assured me. But yesterday, your father came to see me. He wants to revise their joint will again. He's planning to add a clause that makes it more difficult for you to contest anything. Your mother called me this morning in tears, asking what she should do. I told her I needed to talk to you first. The pieces started falling into place. Dad was trying to lock me out completely, to make sure Ethan got everything without question. And Mom, caught in the middle, had tried to fix things quietly. What should I do? I asked. Patricia folded her hands on the desk. That's not for me to say. But I will tell you this, your mother is scared. She's caught between her husband and her conscience. Whatever you decide, decide it soon. I left the office with a copy of Mom's secret will in my bag, my mind racing. That night, I did something I hadn't done in weeks. I called Mom. She answered on the first ring. Maya? Her voice was small, frightened. I talked to Patricia, I said. Silence. Then, a choked sob. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, baby. I didn't know how to tell you. Your father, he's so set on this, and Ethan keeps saying you'll be fine, and I couldn't let you think it didn't matter. What you did. I couldn't. I closed my eyes, tears sliding down my cheeks. Mom. I know I should have stood up to him at the meeting. I know I should have said something. But I'm a coward, Maya. I've always been a coward when it comes to your father. Why did he decide this? I asked. Really? Why Ethan? She was quiet for a long moment. Because Ethan never challenged him. You were always the difficult one, asking questions, pushing back, wanting explanations. Your father likes things simple. Ethan makes things simple. The truth of it settled over me like ash. And the grandkids, she added. He's obsessed with making sure they're provided for. He sees it as his legacy. What about me? My voice broke. What am I? You're my daughter, she whispered. You're my daughter who saved my life, and I will never forget that. Even if I'm too weak to say it out loud where your father can hear. We both cried then, two women trapped in different ways by the same man's expectations. What do you want me to do? I asked finally. I don't know, she admitted. If you contest anything, it'll destroy the family. Your father will never forgive you. Ethan will never speak to you again. And if I don't? Then you spend the rest of your life paying for a debt you should never have owed alone. The impossible choice. My family or my future. I need time to think, I said. Take all the time you need, Mom replied. Just know that I see you. I've always seen you. When we hung up, I sat in the dark of my apartment, that secret will on my coffee table, and thought about what kind of person I wanted to be. The answer came 3 days later when I got the call. Mom had had a stroke. Massive and sudden. She was at St. Catherine's Hospital, the same hospital where I'd sat with her through chemo, where Dad had recovered from surgery, where I'd signed away my financial future. I got there in 15 minutes, breaking every speed limit. Dad was in the waiting room, gray-faced and shaking. Ethan stood beside him, on his phone, probably rearranging his schedule. Maya, Dad said when he saw me, and he looked ancient suddenly, all his authority stripped away by fear. Where is she? I demanded. ICU. They're not sure if she'll, his voice broke. I pushed past them, found a nurse, and demanded to see her. They let me in because I'd been listed as her medical proxy, a decision made back when I was paying the bills, when I was useful. Mom lay in the bed, tubes and wires everywhere, her face slack on one side, her breathing assisted by machines that beeped and hissed. I took her hand, the one that could still feel, and held it gently. I'm here, I whispered. I'm right here. Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused, struggling. Don't try to talk, I said. Just rest. But she was trying to say something, her mouth working, her good hand squeezing mine weakly. The nurse stepped closer, interpreting. She's saying, Will. Your will. Mom's eyes locked onto mine, desperate, pleading. I know about the will, I told her softly. I know, Mom. It's okay. Relief flooded her face, and then she closed her eyes, the monitors maintaining their steady rhythm. I sat with her for 6 hours. Dad came in once, stood awkwardly by the door, then left. Ethan never came in at all. When the doctor finally came to talk to me, his face was grave. The stroke was severe, he said. Even if she recovers, there will likely be significant impairment. Speech, mobility. She'll need full-time care. Full-time care. More money. More sacrifice. What are her chances? I asked. 50-50 in the next 48 hours. I nodded, numb. Thank you. That night, sitting in the ICU waiting room at 3 a.m., Ethan finally approached me. This is bad, he said, stating the obvious. Yeah. If she needs long-term care, we'll have to sell the house. Use those funds. I looked at him. Really looked at him. We? He had the decency to look uncomfortable. The family. You know what I mean. No, I said slowly. I don't know what you mean. Because according to Dad's will, you inherit everything. So technically, this is your problem, not mine. His face hardened. You're really going to do this now? While Mom's dying? I'm not doing anything, I said. I'm just clarifying the situation. You get everything, remember? That means you get the responsibility too. That's not how family works. I laughed, a harsh sound that made an elderly man across the room look up. Family? You mean like how you helped with the $67,000? That kind of family? I told you, I couldn't. You could, I interrupted. You chose not to. And now Mom's in there fighting for her life, and Dad's out there probably already calculating costs, and you're worried about the house. He stood up. You've always been bitter. Always jealous that I made something of myself. You made something of yourself on the backs of people who actually showed up, I shot back. Don't confuse luck with virtue. He walked away, and I let him go. When Mom died 3 days later, quietly in the early morning hours with me holding her hand, I felt something break and heal simultaneously. The funeral was small. Dad was a wreck, suddenly ancient and fragile. Ethan gave a speech about family and love that made me want to scream. And then came the reading of the will. We gathered at Patricia Hendrick's office, Dad, Ethan, me, and a few witnesses. Patricia sat behind her desk, 2 envelopes in front of her. Before we begin, she said carefully, I need to inform you that there are 2 wills to be read. The joint will created by Mr. and Mrs. Castellano, and a separate will created by Mrs. Castellano alone 3 weeks before her death. Dad's face went white. What? Patricia opened the first envelope. The joint will leaves everything equally to both children, with Mr. Castellano retaining life estate in the family home. Ethan frowned. Wait, I thought. That was a preliminary draft, Patricia said. It was never finalized or signed. Mrs. Castellano refused to sign it. I sat very still, barely breathing. Patricia opened the second envelope. Mrs. Castellano's personal will, which governs her separate property, is very clear. Her half of the house, her savings account containing $42,000, and the Montana property, all of it goes to Maya Castellano, in recognition of the extraordinary financial sacrifice Maya made to save her mother's life. The room exploded. That's impossible. Dad shouted. She can't do that. Ethan yelled. Patricia's voice cut through the chaos. She absolutely can, and she did. This will is legal, properly witnessed, and filed with the court. It supersedes any joint decisions because this is her separate property. Dad was on his feet. I'll contest it. I'll fight this. You can try, Patricia said calmly. But Mrs. Castellano was very specific. She included a letter explaining her reasoning. Would you like me to read it? Silence fell. Patricia pulled out a handwritten letter, Mom's shaky script covering the page. To my family. If you're reading this, I'm gone. And I need you to know that I died with a guilty conscience. Maya saved my life. She saved her father's life. She gave up everything, her savings, her security, her future, to make sure we lived. And what did we do? We told her she'd get nothing. We rewarded the son who sent a fruit basket and punished the daughter who sacrificed everything. I can't die with that on my soul. Everything I have, everything that's mine alone, goes to Maya. Not because I love Ethan less, but because fairness matters. Because sacrifice deserves recognition. Because my daughter needs to know that what she did mattered. To Maya, you are the strongest person I know. I'm sorry I was too weak to fight for you when I was alive. I hope this makes up for some of that. To Ethan, your sister gave you your mother's life. Remember that. To my husband, I love you, but you were wrong. And I hope someday you'll see that. With all my love, Margaret. The room was silent except for Patricia's voice reading those final words. I sat there, tears streaming down my face, holding this last gift from a woman who'd been too afraid to fight for me in life but had found courage in death. Dad stood up and walked out without a word. Ethan stared at me across the table, his face a mixture of shock and rage. "You knew about this." "I did," I said quietly. "And you didn't say anything. Would you have? If the roles were reversed?" He didn't answer. He just grabbed his coat and left. Patricia handed me the documents. "The Montana property is worth about $90,000. The savings account has $42,000. The house, once your father passes or chooses to sell, will be split, but your mother's half is guaranteed to you. $132,000. Not enough to erase the $67,000 in debt I still carried, but enough to breathe. Enough to stop working 3 jobs. Enough to build something resembling a future." "She wanted you to have this too," Patricia said, sliding a small envelope across the desk. Inside was a photo of Mom and me from when I was 7, both of us laughing at some long-forgotten joke. On the back, in her handwriting, "You were always enough." I held that photo and cried, for the mother who'd loved me imperfectly, for the family that would probably never speak to me again, for the girl I'd been who'd thought sacrifice would be enough to earn love. But mostly, I cried with relief. Because for the first time in my life, someone had chosen me back. And that, I realized as I walked out of that office into the bright afternoon sun, was worth everything.